The bang rattled the whole cul-de-sac. Loud, metallic, mean enough to set every dog in Cedar Ridge Meadows barking like an alarm system. I knew that sound. It was my garage door slamming shut, followed by 3 deadbolts thrown so fast they sounded like a weapon being cocked. I stepped outside in time to see my father, Hank Cole, planted in front of the now-sealed garage. Jaw clenched, arms crossed, eyes lit with the righteous fury of a man who survived both wars and HOAs. Inside that garage sat 3 massive HOA trucks, industrial, unmarked, and parked there without permission by the neighborhood tyrant, Lauren Pierce. She'd strolled in waving a temporary ordinance she practically invented mid-sentence, as if that turned my home into a community storage unit. So Hank did what any sane, retired Army mechanic with a zero-tolerance policy for nonsense would do. He locked the door and called the sheriff. At the time, I didn't realize those 3 trucks were about to crack open the biggest suburban scandal Cedar Ridge Meadows had ever seen. I didn't grow up thinking I'd be drafted into an HOA war that felt like a spy thriller stapled to a comedy special. But life loves a weird punchline. I'm Ethan Cole, 45, IT consultant, father of 2, proud owner of a grill big enough to feed a platoon, and a guy who genuinely believed quiet suburbia meant peace. For a few years, it did. Cedar Ridge Meadows had the usual: trimmed lawns, neighborly nods, kids biking lazy circles, and the occasional HOA newsletter politely reminding us not to plant aggressively colored flowers. I used to laugh at that line. Then Lauren Pierce became HOA president the same year my father moved in with us. Cosmic prank doesn't begin to cover it. Hank was 72, a retired Army mechanic with a lifetime supply of stories, opinions, and the kind of homemade tools that could start a rebellion. He hated pointless authority. Lauren lived for it. She was HOA perfection in human form. Sharp bob haircut that never shifted, lipstick so bright it made her look permanently offended, and a clipboard that might as well have been fused to her hand. She patrolled the neighborhood like she was running Pentagon inspections. At first her reign was just irritating. Notes on doors, reminders about trash bins, passive-aggressive commentary about my mailbox needing a more neutral tone. Annoying, sure. Not dangerous. The day she escalated from petty to territorial began with something that looked harmless. Muffins. One Tuesday, I came home to a small white bakery box on my doorstep, tied with a bow. I opened it expecting a friendly welcome. Inside were 6 blueberry muffins dry enough to patch drywall, and a note taped under the lid. Friendly reminder. Your trash bins remained visible longer than permitted. Also, per temporary ordinance 47B, the HOA will be using your garage this week for equipment storage. Much appreciated, Lauren. I stood there, rereading it like the words might rearrange into something sane. Hank leaned over my shoulder, squinting like the note had insulted his service. She's testing you, he muttered. First it's muffins, then it's your garage. Next thing you know, she's holding town hall in your living room. I laughed, because laughing is what normal people do when confronted with ridiculousness. Hank didn't laugh. He paced the kitchen, working a toothpick like he was sharpening it for combat. This is territory, son. She's measuring how far she can push. You give an inch, she'll take the whole house. I told myself he was exaggerating. Maybe the clubhouse was being renovated. Maybe she truly needed short-term storage. Turns out the only thing being renovated was my sense of security. The next morning, the trucks arrived. Not 1, not 2, 3. Hulking, industrial-grade beasts that looked like they belonged to a secret government division or a traveling surveillance circus. They rumbled down the street in formation and turned into my driveway like it was scheduled. The engines idled deep, growling, like they were warming up for trouble. Then Lauren arrived in her white Lexus, stepping out in a bold magenta blazer and heels that clicked like a countdown timer. She waved as if this were a casual favor. Oh, Ethan. Wonderful. They'll only be in there a few days, she said, gesturing to the trucks. HOA equipment overflow. You understand. Understand? No, I did not. One of the drivers, big guy, blank face, walked up and extended a clipboard. Garage code. I started to protest, but Lauren cut right in. It's approved. Temporary Ordinance 47B. Standard Procedure. Hank appeared behind me like a ghost summoned by stupidity. Approved by who? He demanded. By me, Lauren said sweetly. As acting HOA president. The drivers didn't wait. They marched to my keypad, punched in the code Lauren clearly knew by heart, and rolled all 3 trucks into my garage, bumper to bumper, filling every inch. For the first time since I moved in, Hank went silent. He blinked hard, jaw working. 2 full minutes passed. Then he turned to me and said 5 words that rewired the whole week. Get me the lock, son. I should have stopped him. I should have said, let's call a lawyer, or let's think, or let's not escalate. But Hank Cole once defused a grenade with duct tape and a fishing lure. When a man like that asks for padlocks, you hand him padlocks. That's nature. He worked with the focus of a NASA engineer. Manual locks, electronic locks, chains, a metal bar wedged across the inside handles, zip ties, then more zip ties. He sealed that garage like it was the last safe room before a zombie apocalypse. When he finished, he wiped his hands on a rag and nodded. Let's see her ordinance override that. Lauren came back fast, strutting up the driveway like she was walking into court. Jack, she said. She always got Hank's name wrong. Those trucks are HOA property. You can't legally. Hank lifted his phone. Yeah, Sheriff Ramsey. I've got 3 unauthorized vehicles on private property. Might be an attempted hostile takeover. Hard to say these days. Lauren's smile cracked like old paint. Cedar Ridge Meadows didn't see police much. The biggest incident before this was when Old Man Trumble's goat escaped and led 3 patrol cars on a slow-motion chase around the fountain. So when Sheriff Doug Ramsey pulled up, the whole street came outside like it was a parade. Doug stepped out holding his coffee like it was the only stable thing left in his life. He looked at Hank, then me, then the heavily locked garage, then Lauren clutching her printed HOA regulations like a life raft. Well, he sighed. Looks like I walked into another homeowner turf war. Lauren launched into a speech about authority, ordinances, and community compliance. Hank cut through it like a sledgehammer. They're trucks, Sheriff. My garage isn't a depot. My son isn't a warehouse manager. And no one asked permission. Doug scratched his head, then delivered the line that mattered. Ma'am, unless you have signed consent, you can't store HOA property on private land. HOA rules don't override that. Lauren looked like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. She left shaking with rage. The truck stayed. And that's the moment Cedar Ridge Meadows stopped being suburbia and became a battlefield. Hank didn't say much after that, which for him meant the gears were spinning hard enough to power the neighborhood. That night, the street buzzed. People walked dogs extra slowly past my driveway, accidentally glancing at the garage. The community Facebook group lit up with rumors. Hank stood in our dark kitchen, staring out the window like he was waiting for an ambush. She'll come back, he muttered. Lauren? I asked. No, he said. The queen lizard herself. I laughed. Huge mistake. You think I'm joking? People like her don't accept failure. They regroup. They retaliate. I saw what he meant before the night was over. Around midnight, I heard a faint metallic clink outside. Quiet, deliberate, the kind of sound that straightens your spine before your brain catches up. I nudged Hank awake. Dad, someone's out there. He didn't grab a flashlight. He grabbed the remote for our motion-triggered sprinkler system, something he'd installed after, in his words, raccoons started stealing tomatoes with military coordination. We crept to the window. There was Lauren Pierce, HOA president, except now she wore black leggings, a hoodie, and latex gloves, crouched by my garage with bolt cutters nearly as big as she was. Every squeeze came with a grunt like she was deadlifting a car. Hank whispered, "Activate countermeasures." I pressed the button. The sprinklers detonated like broken hydrants. A jet of water nailed Lauren in the face, launching her backward onto the driveway with a scream that echoed down the block. She hit the ground, slid, flailed, scrambled up and sprinted away, soaked and defeated. Hank nodded. Textbook retreat. By morning, someone had posted the ring footage with the caption, Operation Karen Washington. Lauren, naturally, was not amused. The trucks stayed locked in my garage all day, and the longer I thought about them, the less equipment overflow made sense. Why 3 unmarked trucks? Why drivers who avoided eye contact like it was a felony? By evening, curiosity punched through my patience. "Dad," I said, "we should look inside one." Hank didn't hesitate. "Damn right." We went in quietly, killed the lights, and cracked open the middle truck. It wasn't equipment. It was a surveillance command center. Monitors stacked like a miniature mission control. Cases labeled audio. Drawers of lenses, wires, and cameras disguised as rocks, birdhouses, and garden ornaments. Racks of receivers blinking soft blue. The air smelled like cold metal and new plastic, sterile and wrong. Hank let out a low whistle. "Well, son, either she's filming a reality show, or we just opened Pandora's toolbox." I pulled a stack of thick manila folders. Each had a residence name: Mendoza, Harper, Newen, and more. Inside were photos shot from strange angles. Yards, windows, plus notes in relentless handwriting. Schedules, personal details, violations no HOA should ever know. My stomach dropped. "Dad, this is insane." He nodded. "This ain't HOA business. This is leverage." We found SD cards labeled by house number. Logs. Behavioral notes. It wasn't management, it was profiling. Then I found mine, Cole. Priority category. Inside, history of minor resistance. Potential influencer among residents. Garage access. Ideal for storage. Hank read over my shoulder. "Well, I'll be damned. They've classified you as a threat." "That's not funny," I said. "Oh, it's hilarious," he replied. "Just not for the reasons you want." We secured what we could, documented everything, and stepped back into the night. "This is bigger than your garage, Ethan," Hank said, cracking his knuckles like he'd just found the final clue in a detective novel. "We stack evidence. Then we bring her down the right way." "The right way?" I asked. He nodded. "Publicly, loudly, with half the neighborhood watching." The next day, an emergency HOA meeting was called for 6 p.m. Hank insisted we arrive at 5:30 to secure advantageous seating. That turned out to mean he planted 2 folding chairs dead center in the front row and slapped sticky notes on them. "Reserved. Presenting evidence." "Dad," I whispered, "this is dramatic." He adjusted his sunglasses. Indoors and said, "Drama is inevitable when truth is on the offensive." By 5:55, the community center was packed. Everyone who'd seen the sheriff yesterday came, plus everyone who'd heard a rumor from someone who'd heard a rumor. Chairs filled tight semicircles. A banner hung up front. "Community first. Preserving order in our neighborhood." Hank scoffed. At 5:59, the door swung open like it had been kicked. In swept Lauren Pierce in a navy pantsuit sharp enough to cut glass, heels clicking like a countdown, and a stack of paperwork thick enough to qualify as a dissertation. Her hair was styled into a caramel-colored helmet. She took the podium with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good evening, residents of Cedar Ridge Meadows," she said. "We are gathered to address a matter of urgent community importance." Hank leaned toward me. Translation: "She's about to incriminate herself." Lauren cleared her throat. "As many of you have heard, certain residents are currently detaining HOA property and disrupting community operations through unlawful obstruction." Murmurs rippled. "Per HOA Ordinance 47B," she continued, "the association reserves the right to utilize resident properties temporarily for equipment overflow." Hank stood. "Didn't wait." "Excuse me, Madam President, but that ordinance you're waving around was voted down in 2012. Lauren froze. "That's not possible." Hank pulled a laminated sheet from his jacket like a magician producing a rabbit. "Minutes from the 2012 vote. Hung this baby on my fridge for years. Pure nostalgia." People leaned in. Lauren blinked rapidly, something her face wasn't designed to do. "Well, even if that were true." "It is true," Hank cut in. "You can't rewrite history because you bought a fresh pack of toner." A few chuckles. Then I stood, heart hammering. And if storage was all you needed, why 3 unmarked trucks? Why fill them with surveillance equipment? Silence dropped hard. Lauren swallowed. What equipment? I held up photos, grainy but unmistakable. Cameras disguised as birdhouses. Microphones hidden in lawn ornaments. Files labeled with residents' names. Gasps erupted. Is that my mailbox? Someone shouted. Lauren's face twitched. Those are legal inspection tools, strictly visual, used to ensure compliance and safety. Hank barked a laugh. Lady, nobody volunteers their personal secrets to the HOA. And yet somehow you've got them. Lauren tried to regain control. The Cole household will be given 48 hours to release HOA property before we pursue legal action and fines. Hank leaned back, calm as a man watching a bad play. Before you do that, you might want to know those trucks aren't HOA property anymore. They're evidence. The room shifted from confusion to realization to outrage. She knew my son skipped football practice. How? Someone yelled. She fined me for a crack in my driveway no one can even see. Lauren attempted to speak over the growing mutiny, but the crowd had turned. Then a quiet voice from the back cut through everything. Lauren, the woman said. Stop lying. It was Julia Reyes, Lauren's former assistant, the one who'd resigned for personal reasons. Julia stepped forward, trembling but steady. I helped her. I set up the equipment, filed the notes, kept backups, and I brought copies. The room went dead. Julia held up a flash drive. This has everything: emails, logs, financial reports. She wasn't just monitoring us. She sold the data. Insurance companies, real estate agencies, even a political campaign. Lauren's face drained of color. She opened her mouth and nothing came out. Sheriff Ramsey, quiet in the back with his coffee, stood. Well now, he said. That explains the trucks. Lauren bolted, shoving papers aside and storming out the back like a cartoon villain fleeing the scene. The room exploded with voices. Questions, accusations, anger, until Hank raised his hands. Settle down. This ain't over, but we just took the first step. Walking home, Hank said, people like Lauren don't go quietly. Tonight was the opening act. He was right. The minute we got home, Hank lit up the living room like we were interrogating the furniture and announced, Operation Clean Sweep begins now. Operation what? I asked. Working title, he waved off. Point is, we set up command. Within 10 minutes, our coffee table was buried under photos, documents, sticky notes, and a length of twine Hank used to connect related misconduct. He paced like a detective possessed. He held up a photo of a lawn gnome with a lens in its hat. See this? This is not decoration. This is tyranny disguised as whimsy. I stared at him. Dad, are you okay? Better than okay, he said, tapping his temple. I'm activated. The deeper we went through the evidence, the uglier it looked. Lauren hadn't been enforcing rules. She'd been collecting vulnerabilities. Leverage, Hank murmured, pointing at my screen. She's building dossiers. This is a suburb, I said, unsettled. He jabbed at a photo. Tell that to the woman who put cameras in frogs. Hank wanted proof that couldn't be spun, denied, or buried. We need her to incriminate herself, he said. Publicly. How? I asked. Bait. To set the trap, we needed help. People Lauren would never suspect. Enter George and Betty Marshalls, the retired couple on the corner lot. Sweet, conflict-averse, always dressed in matching beige, and desperate to be included in anything that didn't involve arguments. Betty answered the door holding lemon bars like she'd been waiting. Oh, hello, dears. Come in. Kettle's on. Hank stepped in like he owned the place. Betty, George, how do you feel about helping take down a petty suburban dictator? Betty blinked. Is this another raccoon situation, Hank? No, he said. Worse. Hank explained the plan with diagrams on the back of junk mail. The Marshalls listened, wide-eyed. So, George said slowly, you want us to break HOA rules? Just enough, Hank replied. To expose Lauren, Betty gasped. I've never broken a rule in my life. Hank patted her hand. That's why you're perfect. They agreed after Hank promised nobody was getting arrested for flamingo possession. Operation Neighborhood Watchdog launched the next day. Step 1: trash cans. The marshals left their bins at the curb for 3 straight days. Something Betty described with the terror of public nudity. Step 2: the inflatable flamingo. We planted a massive hot pink flamingo in their yard, wearing sunglasses. Inside the sunglasses, a microcamera aimed at the walkway. Step 3: watering violations. Their sprinklers ran outside approved hours, which, in our HOA, was basically any time water showed ambition. By noon, the neighborhood whispered. By 2 p.m., Facebook posts popped up. Are the marshals okay? Hank grinned. Lauren will take the bait. We wait. But we still needed the source. Lauren's home operation. We suspected her garage was a personal command post. We couldn't just break in. We needed cover. Lauren provided it herself by announcing an HOA Disco Night fundraiser for Friday. Hank smirked. Perfect. While the Queen hosts her ball, we storm the castle. We assembled a team. Dawson, former stage magician, current locksmith hobbyist, could turn a paperclip into a master key. Nia, 21, fearless, recently viral for sneaking her emotional support goose, General Honk, past airport security. Dee, the legendary cat lady of Cedar Ridge Meadows, whose 11 felines had earned her 15 fines in 3 years, mostly from Lauren. Friday night, the community center pulsed with colored lights. Lauren showed up in silver bell-bottoms that looked like they were stitched out of antenna material. People pretended to dance. General Honk honked aggressively to the beat. Meanwhile, our team slipped away. Nia and the goose took lookout. Dawson picked Lauren's lock with a paperclip and a bobby pin. Dee held a flashlight in her mouth and muttered curses about HOA tyranny. Inside Lauren's garage, the truth came off the mask. Blueprints of every house lined the walls. Color-coded violation maps. A whiteboard titled Priority Targets. Dawson popped a locked filing cabinet. Inside, spreadsheets tracking fines that never appeared on HOA financial reports. Receipts for disguised surveillance gear labeled community artistry. Emails discussing data packages with insurance companies, and a USB drive labeled Insurance L. Pierce only. We photographed everything, copied what we could, and slipped back into the disco like we'd just taken a long bathroom break. Hank wanted one last bait. Something so irresistible Lauren couldn't keep her hands off it. He drafted a fake developer letter implying I was selling my home to a construction company planning to build a duplex. We placed it where Lauren couldn't resist searching. At the Marshall's trash bins, her favorite research library. That night, the flamingo camera caught her creeping up, rifling through their trash, finding the letter, scanning it with a pocket light, photographing it, and slinking away with the confidence of someone who thought she'd found destiny. The next morning, a fresh HOA violation notice was taped to my door, accusing us of structural instability, unauthorized alterations, and failure to notify the HOA of a pending sale. We had her, on video, trespassing, using stolen information. Hank clapped me on the back. Son, tomorrow we bring the whole kingdom down. By sunrise, Hank was setting up a projector and speakers in the backyard like we were hosting a TED Talk for justice. Extension cords, camping lanterns, coolers stacked into a podium. I stumbled out half awake with coffee. Dad, the meeting's at 3, I reminded him. He waved me off. Public uprisings require preparation. You don't show up late to a revolution. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. People asking where, when, whether to bring chairs, snacks, signs. At 3 p.m., the park looked like a suburban festival. Folding chairs, lemonade, kids up front, homemade signs. Sheriff Ramsey arrived off-duty in jeans, carrying an iced tea and a lawn chair. Hank stood beside the cooler podium, arms crossed, sunglasses on. Time to dethrone the queen, he murmured. I stepped forward. Thanks for coming. Yesterday proved something. The rules weren't the real problem. The person enforcing them was. Today we're showing proof, no rumors. I clicked on the projector. The first image filled the screen. The inside of one of the truck's monitors, listening devices, trackers, disguised cameras. The crowd inhaled as one. Slide after slide. Hidden lenses in garden ornaments, microphones in decorative rocks. Folders with names and timestamps no HOA should ever have. This isn't oversight, I said. It's spying. A man raised a hand. What about the fines? She always knew when my dog barked at 3 a.m. Nobody's awake then. She was, someone muttered. Sheriff Ramsey stepped forward slightly and lifted his iced tea. Folks, what the Coles found, this is serious. I've seen less surveillance in real police operations. Then I switched to photos from Lauren's garage. Blueprints, priority targets, missing funds, emails selling data. The crowd's outrage turned hot. Hank took the stage. Voice slow and steady like he was briefing commanders. You've all lived under Lauren's thumb. Petty notes, unfair fines. Rules that only made sense if you remembered who wrote them. None of you deserve this. This wasn't management. It was control, fear, and leverage. He stepped aside. Ethan, show them the final piece. I held up the flamingo footage. Lauren trespassing and digging through the marshal's trash. That's illegal, someone yelled. And we have it recorded, I said. Plus the files, the financial logs, and a witness. Julia Reyes stepped forward, holding printouts and a USB drive. Everything you saw is true, she said. I kept backups to protect myself. I'm handing them over now. Applause broke out. Loud, cathartic, almost disbelieving. Then Sheriff Ramsey spoke from the back, voice grim. I've seen enough. This crossed into criminal territory. As if on cue, a white sedan rolled in. Two men in dark suits stepped out, calm, unmistakably federal. A hush swept the park. Hank muttered, "Told you this was bigger than trash bins." The agents approached. "We're looking for Lauren Pierce." People turned. Lauren stood near the back. Pale, frozen, mouth open like her brain had hit an error message. "We need to speak with you," one agent said, flashing a badge. "Unauthorized surveillance, data misuse, federal privacy violations." Lauren managed one word. "No," she turned to run. She made it 2 steps. The agents caught her. Not rough, not dramatic, just firm and inevitable. Guiding her toward the sedan as Cedar Ridge Meadows watched in stunned silence. No shouting, no chaos, just the quiet end of a reign built on fear. When the sedan drove away, the park stayed silent for a beat. Then applause started soft, then swelling, then unified. Hank put a hand on my shoulder. "Son," he said, "that's the sound of a neighborhood waking up." That night, Cedar Ridge Meadows slept like it hadn't in years. No surprise notices. No slow SUVs creeping at 2 a.m. No feeling of eyes behind curtains. Relief lasted until morning. I woke to Hank humming, something he only did when he was working on something dangerous or ill-advised. In the kitchen, he'd spread maps across the table, screenshots of the private Cedar Ridge Facebook group. New anonymous posts had appeared overnight. Reminder: decorative items must conform to uniform standards. Excessive displays may result in penalties. Unauthorized yard modifications will be recorded. Compliance is mandatory. The tone was familiar enough to raise hair. "They took her away," I said. "How is this happening?" Hank snorted. "Son, you ever try to stop a bureaucrat with a grudge? They don't go quietly. They go underground." He pointed to printouts from our outdoor camera. A faint shape in the sky the night before. "A drone," Hank said. "Not ours. And it showed up after she left." A chill ran through me. "But she can't use HOA equipment anymore." Hank's eyes narrowed. "Lauren Pierce doesn't need the HOA to be dangerous. She just needs spite and $60 worth of drone parts." I sat gripping my mug. "So what do we do?" Hank grinned like he'd been waiting all night. "We bait the trap one last time. For 2 days, He built what he called our final counteroffensive. Props, fake zoning permits, mock documents, even a borrowed cement mixer from a guy named Reggie who apparently owed Hank after an incident involving squirrels. By nightfall, our front yard looked like a construction site designed by someone mildly unhinged. Caution tape, cones, a blueprint staked into the ground, and a giant binder in plain sight labeled, "Illegal modifications, confidential." Hank stood back, hands on hips. Irresistible bait. She sees this chaos. She'll lose her mind. "Dad," I said, "this is either going to catch her or summon a city inspector." He shrugged. "Either way, problem gets solved." That night we waited. Cicadas hummed. Streetlights buzzed. Midnight came and went. Then soft mechanical hum. Hank mouthed, "Drone." We crept to the window. A sleek black quadcopter glided over our yard, camera tilting, recording the staged mess. "She took it," Hank whispered. "Now." I pressed the concealed remote. From beneath a lawn gnome Hank had hollowed out that morning, a spring-loaded net launcher fired upward. The net snapped open midair and swallowed the drone. It spiraled down, buzzing frantically, landing in a tangled heap on the grass. Hank pumped his fist. Tactical success. We brought it inside and opened it like surgeons. Inside were 3 memory cards. The first, hours of aerial footage, yards, driveways, windows. The second, drafted violation letters, shadow bylaws, lists labeled, non-compliant watch list, risk factors. The third made my chest tighten. Coal contingency. I opened it and found a detailed blueprint of my house, notes about our routines, and screenshots from our security cameras, captured earlier before Lauren was removed. Then a document titled, Restoration Plan. It laid out how she planned to regain control. Not through elections, but through anonymous warnings, phantom violations, slow chaos designed to scare the neighborhood back into obedience. Hank's jaw locked. She wasn't going to stop until somebody stopped her. "What do we do now?" I asked quietly. He lifted the captured drone like a trophy. "We end it permanently." At dawn, Hank walked up to Lauren's driveway with the drone in one hand and a bakery box in the other. He set it neatly on her doorstep. Inside, every false violation she drafted, tied with a ribbon, and a note. "From your biggest fans, retire." A couple days later, her house went dark. No car, no curtains, no sign of movement. People argued about where she went. Florida, a new HOLS paradise. Hank claimed she probably joined witness protection for suburban tyrants. Cedar Ridge Meadows finally exhaled. The interim HOA board held meetings to dismantle the worst rules. People showed up with chairs and snacks instead of fear. Residents took turns reading Lauren's most ridiculous decrees aloud, then tearing them up like a ceremony. No garden gnome taller than 8 inches. Rip. No wind chimes audible from more than 10 feet. Shred. No inflatable decorations longer than 48 hours. Confetti. Neighbors started talking again. Really talking. Stories swapped. Old grudges thawed. Laughter replacing that tense silence Lauren had trained into everyone. Someone suggested a block party. The idea spread like wildfire. By noon on party day, I was grilling burgers. By 2, the street buzzed like a summer festival. Scooters, drinks, a bounce house that was definitely too big for the road, and nobody cared because there was no one left to weaponize a clipboard. Hank emerged wearing a sash made from an old bedsheet that read Neighborhood Hero, plus a gold spray-painted pie tin crown. He accepted applause like a man born for it, posing for photos and blessing barbecue plates like a king. It was the happiest I'd seen him in years. Then a sound sliced through the laughter. A high, mechanical buzz. I stepped away from the grill. "Dad, do you hear that?" Hank's head snapped up. "Oh, I hear it." A drone. Sleek, black, professional. Cut across the sky and dipped low, hovering over the bounce house. This camera angled down, recording the crowd. The street froze. "Is that hers?" Someone whispered. "She's back." Another voice breathed. Parents pulled kids close. People shifted under trees. Even the music stuttered to a stop. Hank didn't duck. He grabbed a loaf of French bread from the snack table, wound up like a pitcher, and hurled it. The bread sailed gloriously and missed by 3 feet. The crowd cheered anyway because the throw wasn't the point. The point was defiance. The drone zipped higher and vanished over the rooftops. Hank dusted off his hands. Well, looks like she's still got batteries. The joke didn't fully land, because we all felt the truth under it. She might have lost the HOA, but obsession doesn't always get arrested. A few days later, anonymous notes started appearing, and signed, unofficial, but written in a voice everyone recognized. They showed up on doorsteps, wedged into railings, stuffed where they didn't belong. Unapproved decoration. Trash bins visible from street. Wind chimes exceed volume standards. One even read, "Grass appears aggressively green." People panicked until something unexpected happened. Nobody obeyed. Nobody paid. Nobody tore down decorations out of fear. Instead, neighbors brought every note straight to our porch, where Hank stacked them like trading cards. "Evidence of desperation," he said, tapping the pile. The question was how she was still watching. We got the answer when General Honk started honking furiously in our yard, staring up into my elm tree. Hank followed his gaze. A second drone sat hidden in the branches like a mechanical vulture. Hank didn't hesitate. "Fetch the gnome." We dragged out the net launcher gnome, equal parts genius and madness, positioned it and waited. Hank whispered, 3, 2 now. I hit the trigger. The net snapped up, wrapped the drone midair, and yanked it down with a metallic thud. Inside was exactly what we feared. Dozens of drafted violations, a partially completed set of bylaws titled HOA 2.0, and a file named Reclaim Strategy. She still hadn't quit. So Hank sent the message again, stronger this time. He printed every false violation, tied them with a bright red ribbon, packed them into a cake box, and left it on Lauren's porch at dawn with a note, "Nice try. Retire." 2 days later, her house was empty in a way it hadn't been before. Car gone, curtains gone, mailbox cleared, presents erased. And this time she didn't resurface. Cedar Ridge Meadows became something humane, transparent, almost friendly. Meetings turned collaborative. People volunteered. Hank refused any official title, but somehow became the advisor everyone listened to, and, for reasons I'll never understand, earned lifetime cinnamon roll privileges at every committee gathering. Life returned to normal. Not the old normal. A better one. Weeks later, while cleaning the same garage where this whole saga began, Hank pulled a metal lunchbox from behind the water heater. Inside was a cassette tape labeled, "For When It's Over." He slid it into an old player. Lauren's voice crackled out, dramatic as ever. "You'll miss me. One day this neighborhood will fall apart without someone keeping it in line." Hank paused the tape, stared at me, and laughed so hard he had to sit down. Then he tossed the cassette into the trash. "Son," he said, wiping his eyes, "I think Cedar Ridge Meadows will be just fine." Looking back, every truck, every ordinance, every hidden camera, every drone, I learned something I didn't expect. Neighborhoods aren't held together by rules. They're held together by people. Not perfect people. Not always agreeable people. Just people willing to show up, speak up, and stand together when something's wrong. Lauren thought control kept a community functioning. It was trust that saved Cedar Ridge Meadows. And if you've ever lived through an HOA nightmare of your own, share it if you feel like it. If you want more stories like this, you can subscribe because in suburbia, peace is never guaranteed.